All right, good morning, good day, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for joining me on another episode of Chris's Warrior Path, where we discuss topics mainly on health and self-defense, but then we'll go into other topics as well, depending on what's of interest in the world. I am your host, Chris, and thank you for joining me on this live impromptu episode of Chris's Warrior Path on this fine Wednesday, April 7th, 2021. And wherever you are in the world, I hope things are going well. And so, if you've joined me in the previous episodes, particularly the past couple of days, where I was talking about toxic people and narcissism and how you deal with them, and I was speaking yesterday in regards to what you can do on your own. I went a little more in detail. And today I'm actually going to talk a little more about that, at least my thoughts. And I'm going to give the disclaimer, as you probably see in the description of the show, that I am not a licensed physician, and this does not replace any personal assistance. Rather, these are just for information or informational purposes only. And so, the title of this episode is called The Lost Arts of Confidence and Character. And when I spoke about narcissistic people and toxic people, well, it's pretty obvious that toxic people they're basically vampires. They're energy vampires leeching onto you, draining you, and not being as productive for whatever reason it may be in their life. But in regards to toxic people, let's focus a little bit on narcissistic people. And I think we need to look at what's going on in their situation. So basically, they do things such as gaslighting and blame shifting, where let's say in a relationship, oh, well, you're doing this and that, and why don't you do this and that better? And they tend to not take the blame or the responsibility. And so they tend to take out their own frustrations on whoever and whatever. And they tend to have these fragile egos that they don't want to take the responsibility and not to mention the blame for certain things. And it may have been their fault, or they may have been at fault, depending on what the situation is. So I wanted to make that clear. I just wanted to give you the basics of that. Of course, there are so many dimensions to that issue, but I just wanted to point that out because I think that the term narcissism has been it's been distorted, and I just wanted to make that clear today as this segues into my episode today of confidence and character. And I did mention about how when I watched videos by Dr. Ramani on YouTube, and also Candice Vandell, I believe that was her name, where they had spoken that one of the best weapons that you could use against toxic people, especially with the narcissist, is to live authentically and to speak your truth and to stay truthful, and basically to not give a shit, and to cut out all the bullshit in your life, to just get to the point. And with the narcissist, they'll look at that and they'll say, okay, well, I can't play my games. I can't do all this blame shifting and gaslighting. Let me look at another person who I could perhaps bully and put the blame on. And so I was talking about, in my personal experience with my martial arts instructor, how he would talk about the samurai and also the idea, the concept of confidence in building character. As some of you may have heard, well, with martial arts, a couple of the benefits are building confidence and character. Am I correct? And to also cut out the bullshit. And when I heard those videos, I related to that based on my martial arts training along with life experiences as well. So confidence and character, let's take a look at those concepts. And I'm going to actually, I'll wrap those concepts up later on, and I'll explain what I mean by all this and why I'm mentioning this. Because I think we live in a world of entitlement, and I think that people have lost their sense of self, and they've lost their character. This is why I'm talking about confidence and character being the lost arts these days. And a lot of people tend to go with what's the trend, what their peers are doing, what everyone else is fucking doing, whatever they see on mainstream media or the internet. And so allow me to talk about confidence and the definition. Okay, and I got this from the Merriam-Webster dictionary. It's a feeling or consciousness of one's powers or of reliance on one's circumstances. Okay, so again, I'll repeat that. It's a feeling and or consciousness of one's powers or of reliance on one's circumstances. And I'll give you a personal example where I was once very shy, very, very timid. There were times where I remember in elementary school, I didn't even want to say a word. I didn't even want to get up and do these presentations. I was so quiet to the point where I even had this one second grade teacher have a parent-teacher meeting when my father was still alive. And the teacher had asked him, it was a pretty insulting thing. He says, well, he's quiet. Is he okay? And is anything wrong with him? And my dad got fucking pissed off that. And this was at a Catholic school. And yeah, that upset him. And at that time I was in the second grade. I didn't quite understand everything, but I do remember those words and him telling me that, because I was about 2 tables away, but I could hear them have that meeting outside. And so, I just remember those times where, I just wouldn't talk. Or there were times where I would only talk to one person, or I just wouldn't want to get into these group projects. And it took years before I started building up the confidence and balls. And it wasn't until, let's say, well, maybe later on into the elementary school years. And there was still that sense of timidness, but it started building up and doing more public speaking. And hence, some people probably wouldn't have guessed that, oh, you're doing this. You're out talking to the world, you're posting on social media, and you're doing videos right now, in addition to doing podcasts. Chris, I would have never thought that you would have had that timid nature going on, and I would have never thought that teachers were talking about, oh, well, are you okay? He's so quiet, he doesn't want to talk to anyone, and so forth. And for a lot of people, that would have probably been very crushing. I mean, I'm presuming that. Because if you hear that when you're a kid, you're thinking, what the fuck? What the fuck is wrong with me? Because I know some people where, they would hear something like that, and it would kind of be degrading to them, insulting. It would just break their spirit. But back to the whole point of confidence, I have to quote Coach Corey Wayne. If you don't know who he is, definitely check him out on YouTube. And he also has free books called The 3% Man and Mastering Yourself. I highly recommend those, male or female, and watching his videos. I know for me, he was one of the many that have put a light on certain subjects. And he's mainly life coaching, but it actually spills over to marriage and relationships. But anyways, my point is, the quote that he uses, I forgot where I saw this too, but I'll give the credit to him as well, where he said, repetition is the mother of skill. Again, I'll repeat, repetition is the mother of skill. And I believe I heard that from Tony Robbins as well. So if you think about that, you have that parallel with confidence. The way you gain confidence in something, whether it's doing certain skills or duties in your job, whether you're playing an instrument, whether you're doing a sport, whatever it may be, Of course, over a period of time, eventually you're going to build confidence. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to you're not going to gain any resistance, and people might try to put you down, try to hate on you, and put some blame on you. Whatever the case may be, you may talk about topics or whatever that people don't like, and they'll try to put you down, especially in this fucking era of cancel culture and PC culture. But if you learn how to push through and get through that, eventually you're going to build some confidence, to even more confidence, and then you're going to get better as soon as you start seeing these improvements step by step. It's not going to be an overnight thing. It's going to be taking days, weeks, months, maybe even years. And actually, I can guarantee you it's going to take years to master something. And I remember in my undergrad studies in kinesiology, sports medicine, where my psychology instructors have said that it takes about 10,000 hours to master a certain skill. Yeah, just about. And I believe that. Hence, you have many years to improve on a certain skill. So that's basically my take on confidence. And I want you to keep those points in mind. Now, the next point, or the next thing that I'm talking about, is character. Let's look at the Merriam-Webster definition, which is the attributes and features that make up and distinguish an individual. Again, the definition of character is the attributes and the features that make up and distinguish an individual. Basically, what makes your own self, what makes you unique. And I think, like I said at the beginning, where we live in a time of virtue signaling, and we gotta go and go with the flow and what everyone else is doing and what we see on the social media, which I have to quote David Goggins, where social media could be the devil because it could either make you or break you. And I know for a number of people, it could be pretty depressing when they see, oh, well, that person has a new car, or they have the best jewelry, or they've got this house, or they're taking this trip and all this other stuff. So I can see where David Goggins is coming from on that. And that's why he was saying that he doesn't really spend much time on social media. And for those of you who don't know David Goggins, he's a former Navy SEAL, triathlete, and life coach, you could say. But definitely check him out if you haven't. I think he's great. Of course, I'll leave that opinion to you and that decision to you. But I would definitely check him out if I were you. And so with that said, in regards to building character, the attributes and separating yourself from everyone else, I think that's a lost art, a lost concept. How everyone needs to, or everyone tends, or actually most people tend to go and be like everyone else. And they gotta have that peer pressure. And then they get lost into that. And they don't know who they are anymore. And this relates back to what my martial arts instructor was saying about knowing yourself, having the confidence in yourself, having that balance. In addition to perhaps maybe having a social and emotional intelligence. Because if you understand yourself, you tend to understand people more. You're more in tune to people's behaviors and emotions. And so, with me, personal experiences, and as far as building character, I could talk a shitload of life experiences, and if you want to, you could check out my previous episodes. I tend to talk about that as an example, and hopefully that helps some of the listeners, because they may be going through a certain situation that's very similar to what I've gone through, and they probably want some guidance. But I know with me, building character, it takes things like rough times. When my father had passed away many years ago, I know when he was lying in that deathbed for a few months and he was in a vegetative state, that was something that was so foreign to my family, and especially me, being the youngest sibling, and to take charge of that and to call the shots and up to his funeral. In addition to being I was once the primary giver of my mother for some number of years, leading up to her going in and out of hospitals because she had some health issues, and that led to her passing a couple years ago. And again, I had to step up and take charge of some of the things such as the estate, the legal issues, in addition to her medical decisions, and also the funeral memorial services. So, I think that definitely with rough times such as those, and those are just a few things that I can mention as well. I mean, there are plenty of other things, and I'm sure with you listeners, you have your own. But with life experiences, that definitely builds character. I know, and I talk about this in regards to the pandemic, these lockdowns, where the truth of people's true colors really have shown. You tend to see who has your back and who doesn't, and who's also tough, who can muster their way through all this shit. Now, for some, you know that it's very traumatizing. Some people have lost their jobs. Some people have been evicted, unfortunately. Some people have not found, or it's hard for them to get meals, unfortunately. I've been hearing about food banks and lines very long, even to about 1 mile. That's very unfortunate. But then we also have on the other side where people, let's say, who are minimalist, and even if you want to go as far as people who have the mindset of being a prepper, and they've been through rough times as well, and they've probably been through things such as natural disasters. That's something that they call in psychology hardiness. Basically, don't give a shit because the external forces don't affect me. I've already lived through rough times. I was prepared for this as well. And not to put down people who weren't prepared, but I'm just pointing things out and saying that some people were more prepared for situations such as what's been going on in the past year. I know there have been a number of curveballs, but I will say that there have been people who basically didn't let the external world affect them as much as others. And that's a show of their character as well. In addition to what I was talking about with confidence. And so, here's my whole point in regards to building confidence and building character and why I think it's important. Because like I said at the beginning, where we live in an entitled world, and I think that these two principles, these two concepts, are lost arts, unfortunately. If you've heard my other episodes, I talk about how society has been pussified, unfortunately. And in addition, I think that's also affected relationships. And how I relate this to my previous episodes about toxic people and narcissism. And of course, there are different dimensions. I can't say specifically, but I could give you a generalized idea based on what I said about narcissists or narcissistic relationships and blame shifting and not taking the initiative. Rather, let's take the blame off myself because it's me, and everything's focused on me, and then I put on a false sense of confidence, and yeah, I got to do this and that. Oh, let me make this person do this and that. I'll put the blame on them and manipulate them and all this gaslighting shit. And so, with the idea with confidence and character and why these are important, and how I think why I think people should find ways to build both confidence and character, is because it's mainly self-improvement. Not only will you go through hardships in life, but if you don't have these two, how do you think your relationships are going to be? Now, when I say relationships, that doesn't only mean whether you're dating someone or your marriage, but even, let's say, your friendships. or business partnerships, or at work. If you're, and like I said in the last episode, I mean, confidence, if you're all over the place and you're not focused on a path to handle and accomplish some of the job duties, what makes you think that people are going to trust you and have integrity? If you're all loose noodle and you don't know what the fuck you're doing and you don't feel confident in doing certain things, the colleagues around you and business partners, you're going to have to, well, see, that's the thing. They're going to wonder, okay, well, can I trust this person into doing a certain type of task, this important task? And so, hence we have self-improvement. Because if you don't have something like confidence and character, if you're not taking the time to do some self-help, it affects, not only does it affect one thing, but I think it affects many other things in your life. And so that leads me to the next thing of social improvement, where, yeah, you can go out in public. Maybe you could make some eye contact with people, maybe have some small talk, but that also builds your confidence if you have some social anxiety, where you could practice your social skills. And I had done an episode weeks ago about improving your social skills. Actually, I had done about, I believe that was 3 episodes. I feel like I've done so many episodes right now where I can't even remember anymore, and I've given out a lot of information. So bear with me on there, because I've done a lot of episodes, so I can't remember exactly what I put out there. But I vaguely remember putting out about 3 episodes regarding improving social skills, or social, yeah, which includes social improvement and how to connect with people, your body language and eye contact, so forth. So I highly recommend you check that out, in addition to reading other books as well, or watching videos on how to do that. But back to what I was saying, building confidence and building character, it's important because it helps with self-improvement and it helps with social improvement, which avoids those potential problems of maybe costing you a job or a business deal, or maybe fucking up your marriage or your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it may be. And so that's the thing. I believe these are lost concepts. I believe we live in a spoiled, entitled world, where people also are too in touch with electronics and taking the easy way out, where we forget the lost art of communication, and which I believe I had mentioned that in another episode, and I had done an episode about that too, which is communication is a lost art. And I know these days we tend to be on Zoom and internet, but I know for some, or a lot of people, and not everywhere is locked down completely, and people will tend to go to stores. I mean, you do definitely have to buy your food. So, I mean, my personal recommendation is, if you go out and just make eye contact with people, say hi to them, and if they don't say anything, then move on. Say hi to the next person. Just be happy that you're living. Because eventually that builds your confidence if you have some social anxiety, to say, well, you know what, I can actually talk to people. I could connect with people. And not only that, but you may be helping that person as well. I mean, how do you know that person is not going through a shitty day thinking, okay, if someone doesn't say hi to me, I may end my life just now. Or I may do something crazy to someone else. I mean, to simply say hi and to have social interaction, you could be helping a person. You could be preventing something that's drastic, that is not very productive to them or the people around them. And so I think these are lost concepts that definitely need to be looked at. And so I had spoken also about emotional intelligence. These are improved with building confidence and character, with these lost arts. And I'll give you the definition of emotional intelligence, which is the ability to identify or manage one's own emotions and others' emotions, which I had briefly spoken about minutes ago. How you start to understand people, you understand behaviors, and you're a little emphatic towards people rather than, oh, let me just be a narcissist and I don't give a fuck about anyone. I'm in my own world of glitz and glamour and all this other stuff. And no, I just want to push you away and all that. And now, don't get me wrong. You do need to have a positive mindset. I strongly believe in that because energy is very contagious, both positive and negative. But if you're oblivious to how people are, you don't know how to connect, that's going to cause issues such as narcissism or toxic relationships. And hence, this is why I'm speaking about this in this episode. Why these principles are important and why I need to point out the actual definitions to these. Because not everyone knows this, so don't feel bad if you don't. And also, for me, I mean, I'm always learning about self-help and in addition to science and health, and also self-defense as well. So the thing with my show, Chris's Warrior Path, it's ever-learning, ever-evolving experience. And that's one of the reasons why I had created the show. And so the next point, I'm actually going to wrap this up in a couple minutes because I'm also, I have my camera on. I'm also on YouTube and BitChute and Rumble. So if you want to check me out there, I'm actually filming this podcast and I have other episodes as well. But my podcast website has the full episodes. They're not just excerpts. You could definitely download those for free and listen to them for free all you want. But you could also check me out on the video platforms as well. So my camera may be cutting short in a little bit. So that's why I'm going to have to kind of breeze through these. But this next point, social intelligence, is just what I was talking about. The definition is the capacity to communicate or form relationships with empathy and assertiveness. Again, I'll repeat that. Emotional or social intelligence, rather, is the capacity to communicate and or form relationships with empathy and assertiveness. There, you'll hear from sources saying that usually that comes from knowing yourself. And hence, I mentioned that earlier. And with my martial arts instructor, how he talks about that, how a lot of people these days tend to lose themselves in relationships or going with the flow with society. And they're basically on the matrix versus not living on their own terms and being unapologetically authentic, which I had mentioned earlier, how to overcome toxic and narcissistic people to live authentically. Because if you live your truth, people tend to not fuck with you as much. And you just stay on your path. And with that said, this brings me to relationships. So think of all the concepts I had mentioned. And with relationships, if any of these principles are missing, or these concepts are missing, there tends to be a toxic or narcissistic relationship. Whether it be family, friends, or just dating or marriage, there tends to be stuff like this happening, potential challenges.